At UFC 264, McGregor broke his vows. Among other things, Dustin Poirier, now 28-6, is the winner of the best of three between himself and Conor McGregor, who's now 22-6. It's obviously not the way that anyone wanted it to end. After taking a proper beating from Poirier, McGregor found himself backed against the cage looking for a counter, but as he threw that counter, his ankle completely snapped. The sight horrified many fans, myself included, and while it wasn't as bad as the Chris Weidman injury we saw earlier this year, it was still pretty horrible. Hey, how's it going, champ? Thanks for stopping in. If you're big on MMA, then please do us a solid by giving the subscribe button a little jab and follow that up with a cross to the bell. If you like what you see during the video, don't forget to throw us a like. It goes a long way. Alright then, Skoden. With this recent loss, MMA fans have their set of ideas as to what Conor McGregor's next move should be. This is our take on the situation, but first we're going to recap the actual short fight itself. If you saw the fight though, you can skip ahead where we got a list of McGregor's next moves that make sense. Conor McGregor was all trash talk before they stepped into the octagon at T-Mobile at UFC 264. The trash talk came out viciously in the last 2 weeks especially. It was actually kind of cringy, like Conor was copycatting himself from the early Conor McGregor days. A little bit cringy. Anyways, he mentioned Poirier's wife slipping into his DMs a few times, but what actually stoked Poirier up was Conor's death threats, essentially telling Poirier that he'd be leaving in a stretcher. Well, at this point, you probably saw that McGregor once again turned himself into a meme, and that he actually got a free ride out of the cage in a stretcher, because he broke his leg again pretty horribly around the ankle. Good news though, McGregor did have a successful 3.5-hour surgery, just to throw that out there. Referee Herb Dean, after crouching and speaking to McGregor, stopped the bout. Poirier said he thought McGregor had fractured the leg earlier when he checked a kick, but it ended up breaking in a slightly different way earlier in the fight. McGregor won the first fight between them at UFC 178 in 2014 by first round finish, but Poirier won the last two and now moves on to a title fight against lightweight champion Charles Oliveira, who's 31-8-0. Conor McGregor, more fights to be had. Look, there's more fights in him. Like we said earlier, that's not the way we wanted the fight to end, and for good reason. This is not over, McGregor shouted from the corner with his leg all busted up. While I strongly believe that Dustin was winning that fight through and through, it wasn't to say that McGregor wasn't doing a good job. Some of the highlights we can mention is that he did look a lot more like himself in the first fight, where he was able to put Poirier away early. McGregor launched a lot of kicks, and even a few times he pulled away from Dustin's calf kick, and even threw a leg kick for himself, landing extremely well. There were plenty of good looks from McGregor fight fans can take away from his performance, but at the end of the day, he did take an L, and Dustin the Diamond Poirier took the trilogy. Dustin's just better, and is going on to fight Charles the Bronx Oliveira for the lightweight belt, while Conor isn't. While the rivalry between Dustin and Conor seems to be piping hot, that's not the fight to take place, not in our beliefs. I still think there's plenty of more exciting fights for Conor to be had, and here's our list of what should be McGregor's next opponents. Please, no, don't move up and wait. First up, I'm going to talk about what he shouldn't do quickly. There's been some banter between McGregor and the 170-pound king Kamaru Usman, who's 19-1. A little feud fired up after McGregor accused Kamaru of taking some of his lines. And long story short, Usman basically called McGregor a regular fighter. In fact, Usman's response seemed poised and confident and in no way reflective of wanting to take a fight with Conor seriously. And if, for some astronomically stupid reason that fight does happen, you don't need to be an odds maker to know who'd win that fight. I mean, if Conor can't move past the 155er in Poirier, who's not even the champion, then there's no way in this dimension he beats Usman. In fact, anyone in the 170-pound division worth their salt in the top 10 would give McGregor a problem. So McGregor needs to stay at 155. Again, McGregor needs to stay at 155. I believe that if he truly wants his MMA career to thrive, it needs to be at 155. Any lower, he can't make the weight. Any higher, the competition is just too big and too powerful. It's time to stop with the money fights too. Wind it back, man. McGregor's rise to fame was awesome. Even haters can't say it wasn't a thrill to see this man become a double champ and UFC's biggest draw. But a lot of problems came about during this time. We get it. He's a cash cow. We wanted him in all the super fights. Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal, Usman, GSP, probably Jesus himself, blah, blah, blah. But nah, the way that Conor McGregor needs to find success again is by dialing it back. Start fighting guys who are lower in the rankings. That's right, to start fighting people who his skills actually may align with. This will help him develop confidence again, allowing him to build on his highlight reels and give him some working room and time to improve on his game. So I would like to see the Notorious, who's ranked 5th in the lightweight division, face against Tony Ferguson, who's ranked 6th and has a record of 26-7. 6. McGregor versus Ferguson. How dope does that sound already? Now the last that UFC boss Dana White said of Ferguson is that he's set to fight before the end of the year. Despite Tony taking the big L against Beneil Dariush, who's 21-4-1 on May 15, 2021 at UFC 262, I think there's still a lot of excitement that comes with Tony's style. And if you match him up against a fellow striker in McGregor, you can only imagine the fireworks. This gives both fighters the opportunity to pit against each other with some of the most remarkable striking techniques in the 155-pound division. Spinning shit, masterful jabs, Imanari rolls, the cartwheel kicks, limitless potential. It'd be amazing. That fight would take over pay-per-view numbers and also give McGregor some breathing room to improve in the 155 pot, where he belongs. Also, I think it'd be in Conor's best interest to fight Rafael Dos Anjos, who's 30 and 13. Not only do they go way back to when Dos Anjos was actually the lightweight king, and even sometime before that. McGregor was in top form in 2015, and the two had some back and forth banter. I guess Dos Anjos is coming back to bite him in the foot, and now after his loss at 264, Dos Anjos just tweeted that McGregor should humble up. This is in response to McGregor making fun of Dos Anjos' foot injury over the course of Dos Anjos' career when Dos Anjos was in top form. So with a bit of distasteful history and Dos Anjos coming out with some trash talk himself, I say it's a potential date. Why not? Dos Anjos may not be the biggest name he can fight, but like I said, McGregor has to stop chasing money fights if he wants to start winning again. Winning will eventually lead to bigger fights and profit. Another fight that would intrigue fans in the 155 division would be McGregor versus Dan Hooker, who's 20 and 10. Now, Dan wants to fight either Nate Diaz or Tony Ferguson. That's fair, but in the future, I think a fight between Hooker and McGregor would make sense for them both. They're both phenomenal strikers and have great credentials for putting on a show. McGregor may have the experience and edge over Hooker, so it might be something that could prove fruitful for the future of his career. Now, I'm starting to dip even lower in the 155 rankings. In another matchup I think would suit McGregor, and no one would hate it completely anyways, Brad Riddell, 10 and 1. I know, not the biggest name, but a name that for many hardcore MMA fans love. He's an excellent striker, coming off a barn-burning slugger with Drew Dober, who's 23 and 11. A fight between McGregor and Riddell could be super interesting because Riddell, a former Glory kickboxer and overall vet of kickboxing, is a bulldog of a technical striker. Massive power behind every punch and kick and strike with an amazing chin to boot. McGregor plays the range much better though, and I think if McGregor is able to do with Riddell what he accomplished with, say, Dennis Seaver, it may be a good fight for the fans and for McGregor to boost his confidence. But please, no, not boxing, at least not for now. Conor can box. Maybe not Floyd Mayweather, but he can box, but that's not where he needs to go. We don't want to see him do that. Any name worth buying a pay-per-view next to McGregor's in boxing, sorry to say, would destroy McGregor. And it would reverse everything McGregor's been building in terms of his MMA skills since the Mayweather debacle. Conclusion, so we truly believe McGregor will stay in the UFC, and if he really wants to thrive and earn his walk the talk status he owned early in his career, he needs to build it up in the 155 division and build it up slowly with pace. He needs to look at those opponents we mentioned earlier and truly handpick his opponents. Handpick them to gain confidence. It's not something unheard of to do a little padding. I know, it wouldn't be the best thing, but it wouldn't be the worst thing. With all due respect, look at Sean O'Malley, who's 14 and 1, or is it 15 and 0? Kidding. He was granted a pass to fight someone who largely many fans never even heard of, and this was on the same card we're talking about when he bashed in Chris Moutinho's face in for nearly 3 rounds before Herb Dean stopped it. Shout out to Chris Moutino though for surviving that. Dude showed a ton of heart, but I'm just making a point. Padding. Now, if that's not a little padding, then I don't know what is. But that's the sort of strategy I really think Conor needs to implement to help him build his skills up, and hopefully give him enough time to figure out how to add milk to his diet too. It's gonna be some time before we see McGregor in the octagon again, but what do you think should be his next move? Let us know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, champ, and don't forget, keep your chin tucked.